Donald Trump is on a string of court losses. He's lost about 90% of his court cases. And Harvard University just had a huge win with having a judge reinstate $2.3 billion worth of its grants. But that's not the only win that the Trump resistance has accomplished in federal courts. Federal courts are the front line of our war of resistance against the Trump administration. And we break it down for you on the recent edition of Legal AF, the podcast. Here's a clip.
All right, let's get into it, Popok. Speaking of cases, it's been loss after loss after loss for the Trump regime. Big losses on big issues in the realm of immigration, alien enemies. Why don't you break down the Harvard case? You know, it's always interesting because every few weeks a rumor percolates that Harvard's about to settle and they're about to do the deal and sell out. There's definitely something going on behind the scenes. There's definitely a divided board of trustees there at Harvard right now. And it's probably incredibly tense behind the scenes of people who want to tap out a la Colombia and people who want to fight. But the thing is, if you can't, even for the people who want to tap out, you can't do deals with a maniac and a sociopath like Trump. Just like the big law firms have discovered, if you think you're doing pro bono, no P now makes you his tariff lawyers. And you say you don't want to do it, he comes after you again. The only way you can address it, like even out of your own self-interest, assume you don't want to do good. The only way you can deal with him is to stand up to him. I mean, just even take Canada, though, for an example right now. Canada did not do any fake trade deal. Unlike other countries that did some fake trade deals with them, Canada didn't do any trade deal at all. They didn't give him a fake one. There's only like 4 or 5 fake ones out there where there's no binding. And then there's which really aren't deals. But what happened? Nothing. He huffs and he puffs, nothing different than would have happened with the fake trade deal. And then once he has you in the trade deal, like an abuser, he just abuses you more. You're now in his orbit. And so you got to get the hell out of his orbit and you've got to fight, even out of your self-interest, even out of your survival. If I was their legal advisor on any of these cases, I would say, look, I understand, that you may be being advised by people that your research dollars are important and maybe you even have bad intent. Maybe you don't care about standing up for principles of law, which I disagree with, but maybe you don't want to stand up for principles of law. Then stand up just for yourself because you do a deal, he's coming back for you a third, a fourth, a fifth, a sixth time. That's why you got to fight. People are fighting. Popok, a lot of momentum this week, man. I mean this sincerely. I feel like we came back from summer and right away, whether it was the Epstein survivors, whether it was Democrats punching back on the Hill in these committee hearings, RFK Jr. getting excoriated on the, like it just felt like Donald Trump and MAGA thought they were going to roll into this thing and be like, we're back. And we were
Democrats got their groove back.
Out of here.
Yeah, Democrats got their groove back. And what's leading the way are the lawsuits. I just did an interview with one of our contributors, one of our partners on Legal AF, Democracy Forward, who the Atlantic magazine said is the single most troublesome opponent of the Trump administration. I'm not talking about media now, because of the lawsuits that they brought. 100 lawsuits. They're winning at a 93% clip. There are almost 400 lawsuits in 8 months against the Trump administration. And whether it's the attorneys general, 23 Democratic attorneys general, like the one in California, Rob Bonta, the ACLU, Democracy Forward, groups led by Norm Eisen, you name it, new groups you never heard of that weren't here in the first administration, NAACP, which of course you have heard of, they are filing cases at a rapid rate because we're watching an administration that is devolving before our very eyes, tracking the de-evolution of Donald Trump's physical and mental health. I mean, the fact that we even have to speculate, is he dead or alive? If he's alive, why does he look dead? What's with the makeup? Is that the cover-up? The fact that we have to even do that as Donald Trump single-handedly destroys our public health system, which is going to be a major issue to run the bastards out at the midterms. But you always have to come back to the lawsuits and to the litigation. And we just had, I'm losing adjectives for like the worst round of the worst week in Donald Trump's life in court. But I've said that before. But look, we've got on major issues across 6 different courts, and there's been other rulings as well. These are if you had to rank them, like the biggest ones of the week, going back 8 days or so. This is in 6 different courts, from San Francisco to Massachusetts to DC, appellate courts and trial courts on fundamental constitutional issues, which many of them are on fast track to the United States Supreme Court, but we'll have to see. You led off with Harvard, so let's lead off with Harvard. You're right about what's going on in the back room. Donald Trump pounding the table and saying, I'm not going to reinstate the $2.3 billion worth of, now let's remember what this is, because I don't want these numbers just to lead to glossy eyes here. $2.3 billion in medical, scientific, and technological research. Research in America, R&D, is done fundamentally at the major university level. Sure, there are major companies that do their own R&D. But if you're looking for things that can't be commercialized immediately, but may impact and help people from dying from cancer, from the next pandemic, from all of that, it's at the university level, and Harvard first among them as our leading university and leading research university. The $2.3 billion or so of grants that were canceled by Donald Trump that have been reinstated by Judge Burroughs in Massachusetts. The bulk of it was from the National Institute of Health, from the Centers for Disease Control. These were research grants to make people well and healthy and stop them from dying. And I've said this on a hot take, and it is true. It's unfortunate, but true. Hundreds of thousands of people are going to die, just as they did because of his COVID policies, are going to die because of Donald Trump's depraved, unscientific quackery in public health than any other time. I mean, direct correlation to his public health policies, led by RFK Jr., the vaccine denier, science denier, medicine denier, at the helm. And that's a fact. Just as you can put the bodies of Americans who died from COVID because of Donald Trump's failed policies related to that in containment and the rest. And just to stay on public health for a minute, because it links back to Harvard, Donald Trump, who bragged to everybody about Operation Warp Speed making vaccines, just had his head of public health cancel a $500 billion vaccine program led by some of those same entities that created the vaccine for COVID. We are not ready for the next pandemic. We are not ready for the next epidemic, which doesn't come from America. It comes from overseas. We just withdrew from global public health in research, in funding. That's where it comes from. It comes from China. I'm not blaming the country, but it comes from Africa. It comes from China. It's not coming from Idaho. It's not coming from Baltimore or Boston or Chicago. So all of that comes to a head in Harvard. The judge reinstates the $2.3 billion grants, finding that Donald Trump's administration violated the First Amendment rights, among other things, of Harvard University, that the sole reason that they were attacked and their grants were terminated had nothing to do with anti-Semitism, which is with a false flag that Donald Trump flew under. It had to do with woke. Donald Trump loves that word. You know, the Department of Defense needs to be changed to the Department of War because it became the Department of Defense during a woke period. When? In the 1940s? So he says, well, we got to go after anti-Semitism. The research wasn't anti-Semitic. The judge was like, there's no link between anti-Semitism and the research. Instead, look at what Donald Trump said out of his own mouth and his own fingertips, which is liberal, leftist, woke ideology. We need to get rid of the teachers and the students and the this, the that. That is the reason, the retaliatory First Amendment viewpoint-based First Amendment violation. And she has reinstated it. The Harvard fight that you're so rightly pointing out is that behind the scenes, including with a new trustee that is a right-wing, respected Republican who joined that board of trustees about 5 months ago, who I thought when he joined was going to try to find a way to settle. Donald Trump's demanding a $500 million tithe or tribute to be paid to his administration in order to reinstate it. Now the tables have turned because they're winning in court. They're going to likely win at the First Circuit. We'll have to see what happens to the United States Supreme Court about whether they're going to allow the defunding of America's higher education institutions because Donald Trump says so. And it's hard to tell with this court. You and I have always, it's hard to tell where MAGA on the Supreme Court is at any given moment on any given issue like this, and whether they're going to allow it to happen, even though many on the court went to Harvard. We don't have an outside marketing department. We're building the channel and the network and the podcast with our bare hands, but with your help and support. Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, you can watch the YouTube version of Legal AF. You can listen to us and download us wherever you get podcast platforms, wherever you get your podcast from on podcast platforms like Spotify and Apple. You watch us, then listen to us. Listen to us, then watch us. Then while you're here on Legal AF, hit the subscribe button, take the receipt. Come over to Legal AF Substack, where you can get live reporting that we do twice a day, along with the commercial-free versions of the podcast, along with commentary and analysis and writing like no other Legal AF Substack. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popak. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.